absolute addicts. I mean, we're cutting that anyway, so.
Yeah. So yeah, so the Pope was on the island. Everyone was on the island. Everyone was there. Seems like see, and this is a problem is because what happens now, when the entire elite class is basically, you know, there's no trust. Even the people who weren't on the island, even the people who were not involved in this nonsense, even those people are the commoner is never going to look at these people the same. If this all comes out and it's going to be the big bombshell that it seems like it's going to be, then I mean that's kind of the end of a lot of our systems and institutions, you would think. I mean, I don't know how we can ever gain trust back in a system where 90%, or maybe it's not even that, maybe it's 40% of the people in it we're doing like one of the most immoral, inhumane things you can
Yeah.
imagine.
I mean, our public trust in our government is already very low. It's something like 40% or something of people like actually like trust the government, that they have like our best interests at heart. Once this comes out, that number is absolutely plummeting. It I agree with you. I don't really know where you go from there. I don't really know if anything changes that much. You said it's like the end of like our institutions, but like what's actually going to happen from this? Is any dude? And here's a crazy
That's a
thing.
good point, actually.
Jeff Epstein, put in jail and then killed himself. Ghislaine Maxwell, I believe, is in jail right now, and she's like facing more charges. All right, so that's two people have been arrested and put on trial for this. There are hundreds of other people that should be behind bars for this shit, and I bet none of them face charges.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the thing is who's going to charge them because the people who are in charge of charging them would
Are,
also be charged.
are also on the list. Yeah,
All
yeah,
right, what else? What else
yeah.
we got
Let's.
besides that scene? It's kind of bumming me out actually now that we're
Yeah, that
getting
one's
into the
tough.
getting into the weeds of this one. But yeah, I will say as a longtime MAGA supporter, I think this one is bad news. For the first time ever, I could say that this one might bring him down.
He's infallible at this point. I think. I don't even think that could bring him down. All right. How about a nice light topic? Nuclear submarines in Venezuela.
Okay, this one I actually wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
So I saw the boat get bombed.
Yep. For
I
anyone
saw kind
unaware,
of a
there was a vessel that America blew to ever living shit. I believe it was claimed that they were smuggling drugs on that boat, right?
Yeah, so that's
That's
what I
why they
wanted to
said
ask
they
you
did
about
it.
was
Yeah.
I saw some people arguing on Twitter about whether they were carrying drugs or they were cartel or they were just fishermen or something,
Uh,
and I couldn't really find a definite answer. Does anyone know? Like, has it been confirmed who was on this boat?
I don't believe so. The Republicans towing the line that they were like smuggling fent, I believe. So like, all right, we'll just blow these guys to ever living shit. I think I saw probably the left saying these were innocent fishermen, which actually that'll be a nice segue into the next one I have. But I don't know. It looked like a pretty small boat for a drug smuggling operation. That's just my uninformed opinion.
Yeah, I mean that's realistically if it is cartel members smuggling fentanyl, then I kind of respect the move actually. It's taken some initiative because it is an act of warfare, whether we want to say, obviously there's levels of escalation. There's a difference between bringing drugs across the border and, you know, airstriking someone. But I do like the idea of deterring the drug because the drug problem is a major problem. The fentanyl crisis is extreme. I think I heard, I don't know if this is true. I'm sure it's probably not, but I heard something along the lines of someone overdoses in the United States from fentanyl every 11 seconds or something like that.
That cannot be true. That cannot
Doesn't
be
seem
true.
true, but I heard it on the internet.
So
And
it's true enough.
the golden-haired man on the TV told me so, and so I believe it. And but either way, I mean, if the opium wars were a thing between Britain and China, where it was this exact same, it is a military tactic. There's governments involved. China's involved. China's the one shipping the fentanyl over to the Venezuelan government, who gives it to the cartel to bring it here. as somewhat of a weapon. So I do like the idea if it is a fentanyl smuggling cartel gang, then I support it. But if we even if there is a slight chance that it wasn't, even if if they cannot 100% confirm that it was, well then we shouldn't have been doing that, you know?
Right. Yeah, I
Even if
don't
they think it was, but they're not sure, then you don't airstrike them, I think. But
I saw some things like I think in the last week saying, "Oh, we're gonna have boots on the ground in Venezuela within the next like couple months." I don't know about that. I always pump the brakes on things of that nature because I toe the line that nothing ever happens, and I think that'll die down reasonably quickly. I bet some deal gets struck that we get some nice minerals out of it or something, and we can look past the fentanyl issue because we're getting some nice rare minerals out of it.
true. Hey, a deal's a deal. If anything, it would
Deal's a
probably be a
deal.
proxy war. We're not going to war with Venezuela. They're small fish. We'll send some type of proxy, Puerto Rico or something. We'll go to war with Venezuela. We definitely won't. But yeah, especially a ground war. I don't think that's happening either. I think this is kind of like a. I think it's another battleground between us and China, really.
Yeah, I can see that. Um, I alluded to a segue. Where is it? Okay, yeah. Did you see this got recently declassified, either declassified or leaked? We haven't talked about this one either. Did you see anything on the internet about the failed SEAL Team 6 operation in North Korea from like 2020 or something?
No, I did not. I did not see this one at all.
Dude, this is a crazy one. Oh, it's not too crazy. It's just interesting in my opinion. So it was a intelligence mission. We sent in a SEAL team to North Korea. They did an amphibious landing. The goal of the mission was to plant a listening device near like Kim Jong Un's like palace or whatever, right? So we could like listen in on what North Korea is doing, right? Pretty standard intelligence operation procedure, whatever. Where the hitch comes in was apparently we landed immediately after like us landing, like a vessel started approaching where the seals landed, right? The vessel got like closer and closer. So the SEALs open fire on them, right? I mean, that's fight or flight, pretty probably pretty standard operating procedure. They go on board. It wasn't the military. It wasn't like spies, a spy team or anything. It was literally like three dudes who were like fishing for clams or something, right? So immediately they had to scuttle the mission. If they like were found out at all, they were told to like scuttle the mission, not go plant the device. But we sunk the ship and then we stabbed their lungs and stomachs so that they would sink and not float the bodies. So we like sunk the ship, sunk the bodies, and then they like got out of there, whatever. And like Congress was like never told about it, and this was like kept under the rug until now. So
Not
nothing,
surprising at all,
no,
honestly. That
nothing.
sounds just that's America right
Yeah,
there.
nothing too
That's the
crazy.
American dream.
Nothing too crazy. Nothing like, oh, this is treason, whatever. It's just like just an interesting one that I saw worth bringing up.
No, there's nothing more American than an unelected bureaucracy sending over intelligence agents to murder civilians.
Yeah, that about sums it up right there. I'd say. Um, what else we got? Worst labor market since 2009.
Is that real?
I The internet
I
told
mean,
me so.
it
The
seems
internet
like
told.
yeah, the internet says. I mean, it seems reasonable, but also let me ask the overlords actually, because I'm kind of curious about that one. I mean, I know there's a lot of financial metrics right now or economic metrics that are indicating we're looking at another 2008, 2009 scenario,
They've been
specifically with
calling for that for
homes.
years, though. So like,
They always are. They always are because eventually they're right if they keep
right,
calling it, and then
right,
eventually they're like, "Yeah, see, I told you." But some of the math doesn't lie. Some of the math is very very much resembling, specifically in the homes, like the amount of sellers versus buyers is kind of concerning because there's so many people trying to sell. There's not that many people trying to buy, but the prices are staying artificially raised, which doesn't make any sense,
yeah,
except, and we were talking about this earlier, the fact that BlackRock, I did want to transition to this one too, that BlackRock is the one buying up most of the homes. So that could be artificially inflating the price. I would say, but I don't know if that's legit or not. That's kind of just a theory.
Yeah.
Um, but hang on, let me see.
So you start looking at
Let me
that.
ask the overlords about the labor. Yeah.
Yeah, you start talking. Look, you look that up. I'll talk a little bit. Uh, there's a line from The Big Short, amazing movie. I think I brought it up on this podcast. If anyone listening hasn't seen The Big Short, go and watch it. Do yourself a favor. Learn how the 2008 financial housing crisis happened, and you can watch Margot Robbie in a bubble bath as well. Um, but it's, there's a line in that Mark Baum meets with this guy who explains what synthetic CDOs to him are, and it's just the biggest pile of horseshit. Essentially, he goes back to his team and he's like, "I think we may be living in a completely fraudulent system," and that's like about where some people think we are. Like, stock prices are insanely overvalued, housing prices are insanely overvalued, but they just will not go down, right? So at a certain point, you have to like look, take a step back, think about it, and realize like maybe there is some kind of, as opposed to an invisible hand, a very visible hand who is keeping things where they ought to be instead of allowing for natural corrections to happen, which that's when the huge economic disaster happens, is when you've been kicking the can down the road, printing money, keeping things afloat. That's when all shit breaks loose. I've heard it referred to as the everything bubble because everything is overinflated, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, and that actually, to bring it kind of full circle back around. So part of the reason as well is all comes down to the interest rate. So I'm looking it up. There's a lot of different metrics to kind of judge employment and like labor rates and that type of thing. According to the overlords, it's about what it was in 2021, which wasn't good right after COVID.
Yeah.
Either way, not good. And then I guess going back, there was a few other times throughout from 2009 till now that it kind of touched where it is now, but it's not good. But it does kind of all come back full
It's like
circle.
right about there though. Like it's
Right,
pretty
yeah,
grim. Yeah.
it's not quite as bad as like global financial collapse, but it's
Yeah.
like it's not looking good. But to come back to the housing market now, part of the reason why um the we have we have such inflated housing prices is because of interest rates. And because of this new data on the unemployment and in the kind of general economy that's coming out now, I think that that's a strong push for the interest rates to decrease. I know the Fed's already been talking about decreasing the interest rates in September. If
Saw
that
that.
were to happen, we might actually see which could be equally as bad depending on how intense it is. But if we actually see a flood of houses into the market, we already have a higher amount of sellers than buyers. If there's a lot more sellers due to decreased interest rates, we could actually be facing a similar situation, maybe not to the level of intensity, but it's the same idea really. When you have a housing market crash, it's because there's more sellers than buyers, and there's and the sellers are willing to sell for cheap. That's the only thing that's stopping it right now, is that the sellers are posting out their houses. They want to sell it for these high prices, but no one's willing to buy it. There's a big gap between what buyers are willing to pay and what sellers are willing to receive. But that's a domino effect waiting to happen, because as soon as some of them start coming down, all of the housing prices start coming down, and then a panic kicks in, and now people are willing to sell their house for whatever they can get, and everything tanks.
Yeah. I mean that housing is obviously a tough one. It's like insanely complicated. I know it is extremely difficult for anyone our age to be buying a house for the most part. It's not a sign of a strong economy that young people are staying at home later than they ever have. It's not a sign of a strong economy that people aren't starting families, aren't having kids. Um, it's, and I think we touched on this a little bit. That could be like a bit of a cultural issue as well. Like, just the culture has shifted a little bit in that aspect. But all of these indicators seem to be like coming together at a certain point, right? And I think you had one in your notes about that, so you can pick that up there if you want.
Well, I did. Yeah, I did. I wanted to talk about the birth rates, but
Yeah.
first, just to touch on that, I actually disagree. I think this is a great thing because BlackRock said that this is actually helping global warming. The fact that no one can afford a house and no one can afford a car, we're actually saving the planet, so we should keep it up. We should keep doing what we're doing, because that's what Larry Fink at BlackRock published. And
Yeah,
so I just find that hilarious. You brought that up earlier. Yeah, if you want to kind of give the
yeah.
background on that
I got,
story that came out
I
this
got,
week, I assume.
I got that one. Yeah, BlackRock actually had an amazing finding, earth shattering. It's not actually true that 57 companies comprise 80% of global carbon emissions. The actual reason for global warming is, like you said, it's single family home ownership and single family vehicle ownership. So, it's our fault that we like own a house. That's the reason that global warming is happening. When I read that for the first time, I kind of like had to change my like thought process a little bit. You've said it numerous times before, how like, all right, yeah, like the climate change like could be an issue, right? It could be very well a thing that the earth is heating up, whatever, but it is also highly politicized. Now I get it from the other side. I see just how blatant that lie is. I'm like, well, maybe some of that other stuff's kind of exaggerated as well.
Yeah, no, and that was probably my favorite one out of the news stories that you sent me because that is just the perfect well two things on that actually. So the first one being is that obviously that is bullshit. Everyone knows that's bullshit. That is it's kind of an embarrassing attempt to try to fool the people. I don't know how dumb Larry Fink and the BlackRock execs think that the people are, but they released a paper in 2019 describing exactly this. They described how in the future what would be great for the globalists is that if no one owned anything and we could have self-driving cars, so you wouldn't need to own a car because the companies would own the cars, we would own the companies, and then all the people wouldn't own anything. Same thing with houses, which is why BlackRock's buying up all the houses. So this just fits their narrative perfectly, and it's very stupid, blatant, easy example of someone trying to take advantage of a what is a very, I would say, passionate issue among a lot of people, especially younger people. Everyone cares about the environment and climate. It's a very moral, oh, look at me, I care about the climate. Everyone can kind of brag and say, oh yeah, I went and I saved the tree. And so they're going to take advantage of those people and just trick them into just giving up ownership or giving up a stake in the country that they live in. It's ridiculous, but this has always been going on because do you know when the first Earth Day was?
I
What
do
year,
not. I do not.
approximately? It
Or
was
83? I don't know. Just a guess.
It was 1970, and you know
Okay.
when OPEC was formed was it was formed in the early 1960s and then expanded throughout the 1960s and came to its final kind of form right around 1970. And all of a sudden, we started really caring about clean energy. We need to start using clean energy. We can't use oil anymore because oil's dirty now that our geopolitical opponents have the oil and we don't have it anymore. And this has always been what it's about. I'm not saying that it's not real. I'm not saying it's a hoax, but I'm saying that it is just
It's politicized.
it's not the number one issue of our time for sure. And it's definitely just a thing that everyone can grasp onto when they're trying to push their own narratives. And that's why I'm very hesitant to believe anything that I hear about, oh, the new study of climate change says that you got to make sure you go to Pfizer and get, it's all full of shit. But the second thing on that I wanted to ask was about the 57 companies
Uh-huh.
producing 80% of the carbon emissions.
Yeah.
That one's an interesting one too. Is that 80% of American or global carbon emissions?
That might be American. It wouldn't make a it, or it could be 57 companies worldwide, like including like non-American companies.
Because the reason I was asking is because I do know that so the CCP alone makes up for 15%. So I don't know if they're maybe considering that as a technically a company. It kind of is.
Maybe.
I mean, that would be 15% right there.
It could be like 50, like the 57 largest like conglomerates in the world, you know.
That makes sense actually. That's actually kind of a lot. I would have almost guessed it would be less than that.
Less than 57? Not even.
Yeah, I would have thought that like
it's like
I would have thought it would have
it's
been
like
like
12.
five.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
12.
I would have thought it would have been like Exxon Mobil and the CCP.
So here's another good one. Kind of just politicizing the environment, things like that. OPEC, Earth Day, like you brought up. Do you know the story of your carbon footprint?
Um, well, no, no, I
Here's
guess not.
all right. Here you go. Your carbon footprint. This was a big thing. I remember this in like the when I was a kid, even maybe like late 2000, maybe like early 2010s. I think it's less of a thing now. But
I do remember that. I
the
know, yeah, I
the
remember everyone
idea
talking about the
the idea of
carbon
your
footprint, yeah.
carbon footprint, they'd always tell you like unplug your electronics at night, unplug your computer at night, right? Because you're like wasting so much energy, your carbon footprint is going up. That phrase, your carbon footprint, that was made by BP oil because they realized, holy shit, like we produce so much carbon emissions that we have to like take the onus off of ourselves and throw it back on the everyday person, make them think about their personal carbon footprint so that they're not pointing the finger at us.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, honestly, a good kind of a good litmus test if we're talking about climate change, because like you said, it's politicized and it's difficult to see whether, if you're talking to someone about it, whether or not they actually care about the climate or they're trying to push their agenda. And a good litmus test, I think, is nuclear energy. What do you think about nuclear energy? If you're, oh no, I don't like nuclear energy, then that gives me a little bit of a red flag because that would be, for one, very clean. It would be very much help the climate, and it's also very much cheaper than any of the fossil fuel energies that we use. It could produce way more. There is nothing but benefits across the board when it comes to the metrics, and they use these events like Chernobyl and these you know people think nuclear, they think the nuclear bomb, but it's a much different. I mean, it's a much different process, much different technology, and really, it's not. I mean, I could be slightly wrong on this, but it doesn't seem to be much more dangerous than working in an oil field or I mean,
Chernobyl
there could be an explosion there too.
is a very important thing to remember, right? I mean that it's still uninhabitable to this day. You can't live there. Some people do because they're like homeless vagrants, don't really give a shit. But it is uninhabitable. It's an important thing to remember. Have you seen the like
Why is it
miniseries?
uninhabitable? Is it because
It's
of just
radioactive.
radiation?
Yeah, it's radioactive. It's
I guess we got to watch out for that, but
yeah. So
I mean,
have you
but
seen that have you
realistically,
seen that
oh,
miniseries
sorry, go ahead.
Chernobyl?
No, I should watch it. I don't know much about Chernobyl. I should.
So good. But essentially what it comes down to is it's just very poor management is why it happened, right? So there's like the last episode they're doing like it turns into like a courtroom drama a little bit. But the question is like, how does a nuclear reactor explode, right? In like the first episode, they're like, we see graphite on the roof. That means the core reactor exploded. Everyone is like, no, that's not possible. Like that cannot be real. Like there is not graphite on the roof. The core reactor did not explode. And the guy's like, well, I'm looking at it right now. I see graphite on the roof, right? And then at the end, they're doing the courtroom drama, trying to figure out how this happened. And there's just so many layers of like things that they didn't do, right? It's like all right, why didn't we have like a biodome around it like every single US plant does? Why didn't we have like these safeguards in check? And like the answer is essentially like they didn't have the money to do it, right? This was like the USSR trying to keep up with what America was doing. They took shortcuts at every single route. They did not do it safely. So the answer, like, so how does a nuclear reactor explode? Lies.
Yeah, yeah. No, that part does make sense. I mean, I've been looking into the nuclear energy stocks a little bit because I do think it's coming. It's gotta come. If it doesn't, I'd be disappointed because I think we should have more use of nuclear energy. Currently, 8% of our energy consumption comes from nuclear,
Solar is
and
going way up, isn't it?
solar is also about 8%, and
Okay.
the rest is all fossil fuels, coal, oil, natural gas, make up the other uh 84. But I
I'm all
mean, it makes a lot of sense because solar is actually not bad either because solar, you can, as long as you have the square foot area, I mean, the math is right there. You could realistically produce, maybe not enough to power like the entire country or anything, but you can power more than 8%. You can knock that. You can bump those numbers up to 20%, and we can bump nuclear up to 20%, no problem. As long as the technology is there and as long as the policy is there. But I think a lot of the nuclear problem is policy holding it back, which I was hoping that my boy Donnie T would deregulate, and then I could make some money on some nuclear stocks.
I could see him being a nuclear guy. I mean, like Like, why not?
He kinda seems like he is.
It
I mean, the
sounds
nuclear
cool.
stocks are
It's
booming right now,
are they?
and he's trying to bring well, part of it too is that a lot of the uranium comes from, like, like, a lot of our uranium that we use comes from, like, Russia and all these Middle Eastern countries and
Dude,
Kazakhstan,
dude,
but
Russia
he's trying to
has
bring it back.
so
He's trying
much
to bring it
shit.
here.
Like Russia has an insane amount of just like natural resource. I mean, they're huge, so it kind of makes
Yeah,
sense.
they've got all the
But
good stuff over there.
I've seen something. It's like if you made like a couple miles square, like a like square mileage in like the desert in like Nevada, say, you could like power up most of like the western United States with just like a few miles of like solar technology. So like I could definitely see that one. Nuclear is great because, you know, windmills are good. We like renewable energy, but if it's not windy, you're not getting energy out of the windmills. Solar's great, but if it's not sunny out, you're not getting energy out of it. Nuclear, there's nothing that ever stops you from producing energy with nuclear.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar, and so I was actually just doing some math on this, just a couple days ago because I was investing purposes. I was trying to kinda get a better understanding of this, and so I have this kinda interesting stuff that I put together. So BTU is the unit of energy.
Mhm.
I can't it's British something, I can't really remember what it stands for, but you can convert from kilowatts to BTU. So a rule of thumb is that 1 square yard of a solar panel produces 1 kilowatt hour of energy. So once you convert over to BTUs, you do a lot of math and you come up with these numbers. So the amount of BTUs, units of energy, that you can get for $1 based on all of the different sources of energy go like this. Coal is 250,000 approximately. Oil is about 90,000. Solar, 1.3 million. So you can get way more solar per dollar than
Yeah.
you can from those other two. Natural gas is back down to 70,000. So solar wins out of those four. And then nuclear is the last one. And nuclear is 37 million. So nuclear is
Yeah.
37 times more. And that's just per dollar based on, based on the processing of the uranium or whatever the material is. But and obviously there's a lot of upfront investment too. Like we already have oil refineries. We don't already have a bunch of uranium enrichment plants. But so
Mhm.
you got to put that up there too. But once that's in, seems like a no brainer.
Yeah. That's definitely one to look out for. I like that one a lot. Um, you think next topic?
All right, yeah. Let's move on.
Um, I got a couple quick ones here, and then maybe we can get into what I think is the biggest one we're probably going to talk about today. So a couple quick ones here. I had Peter Thiel. We talked about him before. The man, the myth, the legend, founder of Palantir, the all-seeing eye corporation. Peter Thiel is giving a four-part lecture on the Antichrist. One lecture
Yeah, I did see
would
this
be
one.
pretty ridiculous. Like this guy's giving a lecture on the Antichrist. He's giving a multi-part series on this. It's and you couple that with the fact that he could not answer with a straight face if he thinks that the human race should survive. Should this guy be getting, like multi-million-dollar grants from the US government?
So my favorite comedian Tim Dillon
Yeah.
was just on Joe Rogan this week or last week, and
I think this is where I ripped this from. Yeah.
I'll see if I can get the clip up there in post here, but he just, I'm going to butcher it, but it's hilarious. He's just like, yeah, he's like, so you're making autonomous weapons that are going to destroy the rest of the world. And then you're making a domestic surveillance state that's going to spy on all of your citizens. And what are you doing as a hobby? Oh, yeah, the Antichrist. It's like, why not like tennis? Like, have you tried tennis? What's wrong?
Yeah.
Why not do like, oh, yeah, I'm doing all of these very violent things that are going to destroy the world, but I also like knitting, But no, instead, this guy, his hobby is the Antichrist. What the hell's going
Yeah.
on with this guy?
Yeah.
But that is weird. I was actually wondering too. Was it actually about the Antichrist, or was that like a joke of? Because people have always, for a while, like gave him shit calling him the Antichrist. I thought that was maybe just like a sarcastic kind of like, oh yeah, hey, look at me, the Antichrist. That's what I'm going to name my speech. But then it seems like he actually might have been talking. That might have been the topic of the speech.
I do think that it is like actually about the Antichrist from
Is
what
he
I've
pro
seen.
Antichrist? Or is he pro Christ or Antichrist?
I don't know if it's a pro or con. I think it's more of like a academic thing. Like, oh, like like all these studies of the Antichrist is very interesting to me. Still not acceptable. Still
That's just
a big red flag, I would say.
I mean, yeah, if that's what he does in his free time. I mean,
Yeah.
he probably doesn't have much free time, and he probably, that's
And
there's so
that's
many
what he
things.
spends it on.
There's so many things to read about that are all very interesting.
Yeah, right. Like,
But
all right,
yeah, I mean, I actually like Peter Thiel, not personally, but just as like I would invest in his businesses just because he does have good business insights. But I don't know if I like what he does with his personal time.
again, it's like there's so many avenues. It's like if you go on there and you're like, oh, I'm a big like World War II enthusiast, right? In my free time, I'm giving like a World War II seminar. Everyone be like, all right, like that's it's pretty normal like guy shit. Like all like most guys are obsessed with World War II for some reason. It's like it's still violent, but it's not the fucking Antichrist.
Well,
Or
yeah, right. But then it's like okay, but then if your World War II presentation is all about like Hitler's side of the story, you're then it's like okay, what are you doing, man?
examining
That's kind
World
of like
War
Peter
II
Thiel gives
from
me that.
Hitler's point of view.
Yeah, yeah, that's the kind of vibe I get with Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're gonna have like a religious discussion, but it's gonna be from the perspective of the Antichrist.
And
Why?
one last thing on that. Peter Thiel is an anagram for the reptile. So do with that
That's
information
pretty.
do with that information as you will.
That is pretty good. I'm not gonna be
Uh
able to unsee that now.
no. I had to check that. I'm like, there's no way. And I like drew it all out myself. I'm like, oh fuck, that's ridiculous.
The reptile. I
um
mean,
all right, another quick hitter here, and then think maybe we'll get into the main. There's an oligarch meeting with Trump where he's like sitting down with the some of like the big tech guys, some of the big financial guys, and at one point, our boy Zuck goes, "Yeah, we're actually looking at making a $600 billion investment in the United States because we really want to bring manufacturing investment back to the U.S." Trump's like, "Oh, wow, wow, that's a lot of money," and then like that part cuts away, and then on a hot mic, Zuck's like whispering to him. He's like, sorry, I didn't know what number you wanted me to say. So in my book, this is just sycophants to the highest degree. It's just cowtailing down to this dude, like telling him whatever he wants to hear. It almost gives the vibes of Stalin taking power when everyone is like clapping for him and he gets like
yeah.
a 25-minute standing ovation because if you're like the last guy to stop clapping for Stalin, you get like thrown in the gulag. So
Yeah, I also see that. I could see that as well. So for one, Zuckerberg is notoriously a chameleon.
we said this
He
before on this podcast. He
he
plays
has
all
no
sides
morality.
now,
He has no beliefs, no
and
ideology.
you can almost respect him for that
I do
because
respect him for that.
he's so transparent in his like beliefs and not having them and just like agreeing with whoever's in power. That's like all right, like at least you know this guy's
Everything
trying to screw you.
Yeah, everything he does is calculated to optimize return on investment to the shareholders of Meta, which is why it's a great stock to invest in. I actually don't have it anymore. I used to though, but that's when I started looking into Zuck and like a lot of the things he's done. I mean, he's flip flopped on politics. He tends to support whatever candidate in election season. He always supports whatever candidate ends up winning. That's most likely because he already knows who's going to win, and then he just jumps in front of the parade and says, "Yeah, I'm on your team." And
Yeah,
then he can sit next to you in the White House and tell you all what everything you want to hear and schmooze up so that he gets good policy for his companies because Facebook might be the number, maybe not the number one, but one of the top 10 companies facing regulation all the time, but they always manage to navigate around it because of shit like this. Because realistically, I mean, they've been trying to regulate Facebook forever because it's used as a weapon, kind of, and they just manage to get out of it every time by schmoozing up to the politicians, which we talk about this all the time. It is, I mean, that meeting. So podcast I listen to on a weekly basis called All In. It's very good. It's four guys. They're all billionaire investors, and they talk about stocks, they talk politics, talk a bunch of stuff. But two of them, one of them is David Sachs, who is Trump's. I don't know the exact position, but he works in Trump's like AI kind of sector. And then the other one was a guy named Shamath, who was a early angel investor in Facebook. they were both at they're the hosts of the podcast, and they were both sitting in the room at the oligarch meeting, and so they were talking about that for like 45 minutes, and but there were a little bit of schmoozers as well.
Chamath is really cool. I like him.
Yeah, yeah, he's good. He's good.
He's always given is Sachs of Goldman Sachs, like probably right.
No, different. It's
Different
Sachs
Sachs.
with a K. Sachs with a
Oh,
K.
interesting.
But it's David Sachs. So he was actually in the PayPal mafia with Elon Musk and the
Oh yeah,
reptile
the
back in the day.
reptile. Crazy,
And now he's
crazy.
the AI czar. He's the AI czar.
That's what they call him these days. So I actually have a couple more. If you want, let's do a couple more. South Korea had people training at a Hyundai factory. It was a new plant in Georgia. ICE got called on them because I guess there was a lot of foreigners in this building. So someone called ICE on them. ICE comes in, detains a bunch of them. They eventually get released. But they weren't illegal immigrants. They were helping train employees on like how to run a Hyundai factory, right? Because it's a South Korean company, so they were in from like HQ or whatever, helping train people. ICE detained them, let them go. South Korea sent a jet, picked them all up, and now Hyundai is shutting down the plant in Georgia. So that's 8,000 jobs lost right there.
So what the hell were they doing in the first place? Why do they think that they were illegal immigrants?
I don't think it's anything other than racial profiling. They just saw a bunch of non-white people there at
Koreans?
yeah.
I didn't even think that would. I wouldn't have guessed they'd go after a bunch of South Koreans. That I mean, I know the other one that you had brought up was that one, and I didn't see this until you brought it up over text earlier. But the Supreme Court ruling about how you can now basically legally racially profile when it's bringing back stop and frisk based on race. That's a little that's a little strange. I mean, it kind of I could see where it would kind of make sense in the sense of like, well, hey, we have a description of the suspect, but we're not allowed to look at his race, so we can't tell if he matches the description. It's like, all right, let's be honest here. We can see what his race is. If he matches the description, he matches the description. But according to that, it looked like it was just like, okay, yeah, you can just walk up on anyone, and if they are Hispanic or if they're speaking Spanish, you can just detain them under the
Yes.
assumption that they're likely an illegal immigrant. Is that what it is?
Well, no. So the whole thing about it is like, all right, before like you said, if you had like a suspect profile out, that's what is called individualized suspicion, right? We're looking for a 6'3" Hispanic dude wearing a beanie, right? So if you see a 6'3" Hispanic dude in a beanie, you have reasonable suspicion to go up to him and like question him, whatever. But this whole thing is Supreme Court voted 6-3 to allow roving immigration patrols to imprison people based on skin color, language they're speaking, or even where they are working without specific individualized suspicion that they are here illegally. So that's that the whole caveat is now they no longer even have to have the pretense of, well, we got a tip that there would be a lot of illegal immigrants here. Now it's just literally stop and frisk, show me your papers, you look brown.
Yeah, I mean it seems ridiculous, and I'm actually kind of surprised, even though Trump. I mean, even though the immigration deportation has been Trump's main thing, I am somewhat surprised that it's gone this intense this time because the first time he was also talking about it during the campaign and he didn't do not he did barely did anything, and so I mean going so gung ho about it this time, I think is a little overboard compared to what people were envisioning. Um, I mean, if law's the law, whatever. Regardless, the methods that they're going about it, where it's like we're not even. I mean, there's so much bigger problems than a couple of guys who are like working at a construction site. It's like why are we getting rid of
That's
them?
not a problem
I thought we
at all.
wanted
That's not a
to.
problem at all in
I
my
thought
book.
I thought we were all about building up American infrastructure and we wanted
Right.
production here and stuff like that. I mean, I mean, Trump's whole thing was these are MS-13 cartel members. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. It's like, okay, we'll get rid of that guy then. But why are we getting rid of? Why are we? If that was the case, then we wouldn't have to racially profile them. We would be able to tell based on all the crimes they committed.
Right.
So
Right.
what's going on? It is really overstepping. And I was very much against the idea, and I stick by it because there was no evidence of it up until recently, which is still not 100%. But everyone's calling Trump a fascist for years and years and years, and I think they watered down the definition so much that people stopped caring because for the first time probably ever over the last month or so, with exception of maybe January 6th, but over the last month or so, you do start seeing things that are creeping into the realm of fascism. And I normally, you know me, I'd be the last one to say something like that, but it is the case. I mean, the immigration thing is one. I mean, there's a couple. There's the
So
militarization of your
yep,
domestic cities
yep.
is kind of a strange one. I mean,
I was gonna say that was the big one I've been alluding to, and I mean that's about as perfect a lead in as we can do. It's all I have in my notes for this one is Trump has declared war on Chicago.
yeah, and I'm currently here in Chicago.
Is
I
there a
am a
war going on?
Chicagoan. Well, I mean, my opinion is that this is a fascist overreach, and I'm actually pretty pissed about it because I think it's ridiculous that Trump is going to bring in the military to come into my turf, my territory, and try to take away something that is deeply ingrained in the Chicagoans' culture, and that is crime. He's trying to come in and say, we're going to stop the crime. Are you kidding me? Look around. Everyone here is a criminal. Our governor is a criminal. Our mayor's a criminal. Our police are criminal. Our business owners are criminals. You're going to get rid of the crime. Why would anyone even come here? Everyone's coming here for the crime. There's nothing better than walking to work in the morning and hearing gunshots and knowing at any moment I could get my head blown off for no reason other than to take my $5 I have in my wallet. And that gives me a good adrenaline rush. I don't even need coffee anymore. I don't know why. I mean, trying to take the crime out of Chicago. What's next? You're going to go to Vegas. You're going to say we're going to stop the gambling in Vegas. It's why people come here. I mean, you're going to go to Epstein's Island, try to say, oh, yeah, we're going to stop the pedophilia. It's like, dude, it's why people go there. The whole point of coming to Chicago is to experience the crime, the graffiti on the walls, the broken windows. What do you think? People are coming here for the bean? No one gives a shit about the bean. They want to see a bunch of hooligans beat up an old grandma. They want to see the blood of innocent women and children rushing through the streets at 9 in the morning on their way to go work at their desk job. That's why people live here. And for him to come in here and try to take that from us, I simply won't stand for it. I think it's ridiculous.
All right, so hyperbole aside, the idea behind what he's doing is to get rid of gang violence and like maybe homelessness. That's what it was in DC. The idea was we're going to clean up the streets. DC is a cesspool. There's way too much homelessness. You did not fix gang violence and homelessness with the army. I'm sorry. That is not the way to do it.
No, and realistically,
Yeah.
I do think that the thing that I'm most opposed to about this, I'm actually not opposed to bringing in some type of federal agencies or some type of military because the crime is a problem. This is what always happens is that everyone gets conflicted because now you've got Mayor BJ Johnson out there saying there is no crime problem in Chicago and JB Pritzker, there is no crime problem. Yeah, there is. There's always been a crime problem in Chicago. It's a meme. Anyone who lives anywhere near Chicago has seen the meme. You've heard the Kanye song about 514 or what is it 314 soldiers died in Iraq, 509 died in Chicago. There's shootings in Chicago all the time. It's constant. There was a shooting half a mile away 10 minutes before we started this podcast. There is crime in Chicago, but the problem is it's the method of approach because it's not helping anyone.
Yep.
We're going to make a spectacle out of it. What do you think that's going to do? You think it's going to stop the crime, or you think it's going to get people rioting in the streets? So obviously he's not trying to stop the crime when he's doing this. If he was, he would get with Mayor Johnson or JB Pritzker behind closed doors, and he would say, "Hey, I'm all about the economy. I want the economy to do good. I need people to invest in our cities. They're not going to invest in our cities if the crime is so high. You guys would look good if the crime gets low. If you guys need any federal assistance from the federal government, you let me know. It's a win-win for both of us. We'll keep it on the down low. It won't be in the news. We'll make sure that we take care of it and we get the job done." That's not
Yeah.
what he's doing. He's going on Twitter. He's trying to spark an outrage, and it's just sensationalism. He's not actually trying to. I don't see what he gains out of it really either. Because I think if anything, it's making him look like a fascist, which I've been defending him as he's not a fascist for so long, and now he's doing this, and it is kind of annoying.
Yeah. So I got two things there. I totally agree with you. It's like I think I've said this phrase fucking 15 times now on this podcast, but it's once again the scalpel versus the sledgehammer, right? You come in with a couple like task forces maybe who are focused on like intelligence more than anything. Like, all right, we're getting like we got our ears to the streets. Here's where the major like gangs hang out. Let's go raid a couple of their strongholds, essentially, right? Round up some of these gang members. That could work. versus the sledgehammer of let's occupy the city of Chicago with like a standing army, right? So it's like we talked about this with the fucking budget slashes, which apparently didn't even happen. It just ballooned. We just ballooned the debt even more. We didn't even get a sledgehammer. We just got a fucking free pass on that shit. Uh, it's, like there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. This is pretty evidently to me and to you and to most people not the way to do it. And my second point was going to be, like you said, is sending in the army going to stop violence? No. Why is he doing it? And we've said this before, not on the podcast. Why is he doing it? He's doing it so he can send the
Smart
military
violence.
to send the military in, spark outrage, spark protesters, which protester like huge group of protesters versus fucking armed fucking stormtroopers. That's a recipe for violence, for outrage. So then he has the ability to say, "Oh, see, look at this. It is so fucking violent there. This is why I had to send in the fucking military because of all these fucking people."
Yeah, that's exactly right. And two things could be true at once too. And I feel like so I think the number one problem in our country right now, it's not Trump, it's not the Democrats, it's the division. Because I mean, I see this, you see this on the internet. You have people in this everlasting cycle of whataboutism where
Yes.
Trump uses the DOJ to uh, criminalize a political opponent, John Bolton. I don't even know who that guy is, but he sent the DOJ on him, and then everyone says it's ridiculous that he can send the DOJ, and then the Trump supporter says, "But you just did that to him. Your guy just did that to him," and they say, "Yeah, but you were mad about it then, so why aren't you mad about it now when Trump does it?" And they say, "But you weren't mad about it then, so
Right.
why
Right.
aren't you mad about it now?" And
Right.
it's just like you guys are agreeing that it's bad. Everyone's agreeing, but you're hate but you don't realize you're agreeing because you're too busy arguing, and you're arguing on behalf of a person or a tribe and not on behalf of a principle. And that can be applied to pretty much every issue. And at this point, we might be too far gone where we ever return to principle, at least the majority of people. And that's a major problem. And so I think, I mean, the point I was going with this is that by sparking the outrage, that is the problem. We need to be able to we need to be able to de-escalate, not escalate. And Trump feeds off of escalation. And I mean, to be fair though, what ends up happening is something along the lines of, well, the conservatives say, hey, if these Democrat mayors were doing their job and actually controlling crime on their own, we wouldn't need to bring in the federal government. And honestly, they are correct. That is true. But that's not the issue. The issue is the spectacle, the show, the provocation. Whether or not we need to bring the federal government in to help with the crime problem in Chicago is not the issue. The
Right.
issue is it's an emotional issue. It's not a fact-based issue anymore. It's people
Yeah.
are pissed because they've been calling Trump a fascist and now he's doing fascist things.
Have you heard the term manufactured consent get thrown around in
Is
this
that
discourse?
Noam Chomsky,
Noam
right?
Chomsky. It
So
could
what
be.
exactly does that mean?
It could
I
be.
know it's something to do with the media.
Yeah. So applying it here, manufacturing consent is kind of along the lines of, all right, so Trump sends in the National Guard to LA, right? Like, well, there's riots going on in LA. I have to send in the National Guard, right? So like I have to like occupy a major American city. And then, all right, well, DC, there's a bunch of crime, there's a bunch of homelessness. We got to clean up the streets, so I have to send in the military, right? Well, Chicago is a cesspool itself. There's like a murder every single day. There's however many shootings, ton of gang violence. I have to send in the military to occupy a major American city. Eventually, you start doing that enough, and you quote unquote manufacture consent, wherein it's now not even like a question like, can we send in the federal government to occupy a major American city? It's when should we send in the military to occupy a major American city? So it's like reversing the roles. It's like taking the ability to do it, and then it just like kind of lessens the blow every single time you do it, sort of deal.
Makes sense. It's kind of like I've heard the story of like the frog in the boiling water. You know what I'm talking about?
Uh,
Where like if you like boil water and you throw a frog into the boiling water, the frog's gonna jump right out because it's too hot. But if you put him in nice, comfortable water and then you slowly increase the temperature to the point where he doesn't really notice it, by the time it gets to boiling, he's not even going to notice, and then you're going to boil the frog. That's kind of, and I mean, and a lot of these are not partisan issues. These are means and methods issues. These are things that both sides do. Trump is more aggressive with it, but the left can sometimes be more devious with it or more sly with it. But either way, I mean, we should all agree that these are bad methods, regardless. It shouldn't be, well, your guy did it, so now my guy can do it. If you didn't like it when one side did it, then let's just all agree that then our guy shouldn't do it either. I think we got to get back to that. I think majority of people are not thinking that way right now.
No, it's totally divisive. And I've had a couple conversations with very close buddies that were like in support of the National Guard going into Chicago. And I, I didn't know what to say at that point. I'm like, what can I possibly say to like get you out of that line of thinking sort of deal, right? I try to have open conversations is what this podcast is all about. It's about having these tough, difficult conversations. But at a certain point, people are so on one side or the other that there is no middle ground anymore, essentially.
It would be much better if we were looking at a piece of paper with a policy written on it and deciding whether we support that or not. But no one's looking at those papers at all. They're looking at they say like the medium is more
The name on the paper.
powerful than the message. Yeah, they're looking at the name on the paper, and if the name is their guy, and that does go back to just human psychology, like we've talked about before. We're wired to offload decisions onto others because we don't want to make every single decision for ourselves and calculate through every little thing, especially these complex issues that we don't know about. And so I think a lot of people are on the impression, well, Trump's the bad guy, so whatever he says, I don't like that. And then the other half are on the impression that, well, Trump's the good guy, so whatever he says, I like that. And I don't, I mean, obviously, Trump is the kind of wrecking ball that's destroying everything, but I also got to blame the mainstream media, like I always do, because if the mainstream media would have done their jobs and actually told the truth for the last 10 years, then Trump's power would be so much smaller, but now he has been right when the media has been wrong, and they have accused him. They tried to impeach him multiple times. They've had the whole Russia hoax, the COVID hoax, all this stuff that the media has been lying about, and then later it comes out, oh wait, no, Trump was actually right, and the media was lying. Well, now you got a huge base of supporters who aren't going to believe anything they're shown, and they aren't thinking through all of the ins and outs of the policy. They don't know what fascism is. They're just saying, I want what's best for the country, and the media keeps lying to me, and this guy's been right a couple times, so I'm going to trust this guy.
Fascists are just the other team. Like,
Yeah, fascists is just the bad guys. Yeah, right. And I mean,
yeah.
I've gotten in some debates with people where they will talk about, oh yeah, all the Republicans are fascists, and then once you get into the details, it's like, well, like the one guy was trying to define fascism as like isolationism, and it's like, okay, well, if that's how you want to define it, then that's fine. Then I guess that's true. But then it's no longer a bad word now. Like if you define Nazis as uh, people who gave out free radios to the citizens, it's like, okay, if that's what a Nazi is, someone who gives out free radios to the citizens of the country,
Hmm.
that means that those. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You destroy the definition of the word by trying to make it fit Trump,
Who
basically.
who would you say in like semi-modern history would be like the first fascist? Because this is like a tough question. I'm putting you right on the spot. But I saw someone like making an argument for like this guy being essentially like what we can pinpoint as like where like fascism kind of stems from, at least in like semi-modern history.
Oh, I believe the term emerged from Mussolini.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that?
Well, yeah. So that's like the first very obvious ones. This guy was saying like
Yeah, yeah.
Napoleon, basically, right?
Oh, okay,
So what
okay.
is what does Napoleon do? Napoleon, like they have the revolution, right? It looks like things are about to turn around. Like they kind of like start getting back into elections or whatever. Napoleon then like gets rid of all elections. He gets rid of the legislative body. He instills himself at the top, and he assumes like total and absolute control over the state, essentially, right? Like he is the state. There is no check on his power, essentially, right? I think that's kind of a good broad definition of fascism would be absolute power, essentially like no checks. on like what you're doing, sort of deal. Like the thing I was reading, like he became the first like fascist dictator, essentially, is what he did. Right now, you can go backwards in time way further, and like basically everyone was a fascist by this definition, like before him, right? Every single king, every single emperor before that, but they were like actual monarchs, essentially, right? But he was the first one in semi-modern history to like start dissolving different aspects of government. He crowned himself emperor as opposed to king because they just got rid of the king, right? It's like, well, we don't like kings. All right, I'm not a king, I'm an emperor, sort of deal, right?
Yeah, yeah. Makes sense. No, yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, that's kind of my understanding of fascism is pretty similar to that in the sense that I mean, my so when we had the Halloween almost a year ago now, when we had the Halloween episode, I was very adamant that Trump is not a fascist, and at the time he was not. He had there was every accusation of Trump being a fascist prior to him winning this year was 100% bullshit. I think now there is actually an argument to be made that some of the policies could be considered uh, under the umbrella of fascism. But
Certainly
my point back then was
authoritarian at the very least.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
I would agree. And my point back then was simply that it was that I believe the way I defined it was that a fascist is a government that owns all of the mediums and all of the systems of exchange communication, which I guess a better way of putting it would be who has all of the power over the institutions, kind of, because they control all the mediums of exchange. So my number one defense against Trump as to why he wasn't a fascist is that he received 90% negative media coverage from the mainstream media. Usually, a fascist would get all positive coverage.
Right.
Um, the Department of Justice was weaponized against him. Usually, a fascist would never be convicted of a crime because they control the
They are the
the
law. They are
yeah, they are
the
the law.
yeah.
Now, two things have happened. Now he has control over the DOJ, and the left is not anymore. And also, the mainstream media is dead because they blew it and they did a terrible job at telling the truth. And so no one listens to him anymore, and everyone listens to online media is heavily weighted towards the conservative leaning, the pro Trump side, simply because the mainstream media was so left leaning that the conservatives needed to go to the internet for a right leaning point of view. And now the mainstream media is dead, and all that's left. I mean, obviously, there's some leftist point of view on the internet, but when it comes to podcasts, I mean, I think it's like 75% is right leaning. And so there is now an argument to be made that Trump is in a position of power more so than he ever has been, and he is abusing it to a level that I don't think I've ever seen him do. Like his first term, he did not do anything like this.
No, his first dude. I don't even like remember what fucking happened in his first term. I was talking about this with my study abroad buddies. Like basically, it's all like encompassed in like COVID is what like Trump's first presidency is remembered for. I
I
want
mean, yeah,
to.
and that was like the end too.
That was the
That was
very end. Yeah,
year three and a half. Yeah.
yeah. I wanted to. You were bringing up podcasters, right? And it's a pretty fucked up world that Nick Fuentes is now popping up on my TikTok feed a decent amount, and that I'm agreeing with him a decent amount now. You know,
Dude, okay,
it's
I was
it's
literally gonna say it, and then I
it's
was
one of
like, I'm
these.
not
It's
gonna say it. I was gonna say I was gonna be like, oh, I actually agree with him, and then I was like, no, no, I can't say that. And
well,
then you
you
said, it, I'm
can't say.
like, yes, because same thing with me. I see him all the time too, and I'm like, like, because I always thought of him as like an
A
extreme kind of
radical
like
lunatic.
anti-Semitic, racist kind of
Yes,
like
yes,
he's like the guy that CNN would try to make all Trump supporters seem like.
yes,
That's him. That's
yes.
how I thought of him.
What 1 year ago, 6 months ago, I remember that's what he was. He was the absolute boogeyman of the authoritarian right. Now he's coming the other way a little bit. I saw him making this point. He's like, podcasters might be turning into the mainstream media a little bit because he
Oh,
was talking
100% are.
dude, because he was talking about the fucking Donald Trump signature on that thing. And he's like, that fucking looks like Donald Trump's signature to me. He's like, I go on, I listen to my favorite podcasters. He brings up like the top 5 biggest podcasters and on like the right side. He's like, they are all spewing the same lines. Like you would see from the left leaning media, how they all spout the same fucking thing. They got handed a script, said, read these lines. That's what they're all doing now. That's not Trump's signature, is what everyone's saying now. That like, he's like, down to a T, all of these guys who like used to be like outspoken are now seemingly all getting fed the same information.
Yeah, no, I've caught that a lot too because I listen to these guys. Like I've been listening to these guys for 10 years and like the Daily Wire, I'm very disappointed in the Daily Wire. They have become the monster that they were fighting against. I would listen to them and because the mainstream media was full of shit and they actually had good takes and they'd actually kind of give you the rundown. So Ben Shapiro's show, I used to listen to him like almost every day and he would do a segment called Good Trump, Bad Trump a couple times a week and it would be like, okay, here are the good things that Trump did this week, and here are the bad things that he did this week. And now they're on Twitter supporting someone called out Matt Walsh, who I actually do like Matt Walsh, but someone called him out because he had literally tweeted like a couple years ago, you know, burning the flag is free speech, and I will always fight to defend free speech, something along those lines.
uh,
And now he's out here saying like, yeah, burning the flag should be illegal. What happened? It seems like even those guys who I always thought were smart guys and out to do a better job than the mainstream media, it seems like they're turning in the mainstream media. I think Nick Fuentes is right, dude. What if Nick Fuentes has been right? Because I mean, honestly, not I'm sure like a lot of the horrible shit that you've heard him say in clips and stuff I'm not saying that's right, but I'm saying, I mean, when it comes to stuff like this, up until recently, I have never really actually listened to Nick Fuentes. I've only ever heard like
yeah.
people's takes on him in like little clips. And I've actually listened to like a couple, 15, 20 minute segments of him. And I had the same kind of thought. I was like, all right, this is making a lot of sense. He's got a lot. I mean, I know he was going on rants about the Jews for a while, which is no good. But when it comes to like Israel and Palestine conflict, I think he's got a pretty fair take on it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff he says where it's not like crazy, you know.
No, yeah, like I had only heard before that all like the crazy obnoxious bad takes, which like you said is what got lumped in with all Trump supporters, right? It's like, oh, this is what every single person who voted for Trump thinks. It's like, all right, that's obviously not true. But now that he's like going the other way a little bit, I think my algorithm's feeding me that a little bit, just kind of saying like, oh, there's dissension among the ranks, right? Like even Nick Fuentes is starting to call out some of this bullshit, right? So I think that's why I've been seeing some of those clips now a little bit. It's still, manipulating like my own perception, things like that, obviously. But yeah. So speaking of fascism, Trump has renamed the Department of Defense to the Department of War. So instead of spending $1 trillion on defense, we're spending $1 trillion on war. Instead of companies getting defense contracts, they'll be getting war contracts. And all of this from the No New Wars president who is going to solve Ukraine and Palestine the first day he came into office.
I like this one. I like
Come on.
Department of War better.
Come
Well,
on.
because let's be honest, what's the more accurate description? I mean, we can call it the Department of Defense if we want to be in 1984 and peace is, war is peace and love is hate and all that. But realistically, we're not defending shit. No one's coming here. We're going over there. We're bombing them. This is war.
It is war, but we can have like the nice veneer on it and kind of try and give
Yeah,
ourselves
see,
the,
that's
the
exactly.
moral the moral high ground a little bit. So we're just
That's
accepting
just
that we're just the blatant bulldog of the world that just goes around and fucks over whoever we want.
I mean, I'm kind of being somewhat joking, but also I do think this is actually true. Is that I think part of Trump's appeal, at least to me, and I bet to a lot of people, is that he lacks that veneer because I think the politicians overdo it on the veneer, and the average person is just kind of sick of the veneer. And I mean, this one is kind of a funny, like goofy example, but on a more philosophical sense, I think yes, I think we get rid of the veneer. Why do we need the veneer? I choose truth over optics, I guess. And the truth is that it is the Department of War. It's always been the Department of War. We call it defense because it sounds nicer. Same, there's plenty of things that we do that with that it doesn't actually change what it is. I mean, realistically, whether you want to call it defense war, it doesn't matter. They're doing the same thing, and what they're doing is war.
Yeah. Well, speaking of probably an operation by the Department of War, as we'll now refer to it as, Hamas and Israel, we got them together in a room. We had arranged for a meeting in Qatar. Some of the top Hamas brass were supposed to meet with Israel. They're supposed to be discussing a ceasefire. You know, everything that sounds good to us. I think everyone wants to see that conflict resolved. And we then immediately proceeded to airstrike them in the location we said we would meet them.
Yeah, I did not see this one. So wait, so we airstriked. Wait, so
In Qatar is a it was a neutral third ground, like a third party that Qatar was supposed to be acting as. Everyone agreed to it because you know we have a military base there, so we were cool with that. Obviously, Hamas isn't gonna like meet in Israel, and they weren't gonna meet in you know like the West Bank or whatever. So Qatar was the place that they decided to meet up in, and then we blew the shit out of them. So I think that kind of just shows where we stand on a ceasefire.
was it we was Israel also meeting there?
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
So we bombed them both?
No, Israel bombed them, but we knew
Oh,
about but we knew about it.
oh, so Israel set them up, said, "Yeah, we're gonna meet you here. Everyone
Yes.
go here," and then they bombed them.
And then they bombed them. Yeah. And we knew about it, so, and we were like
Yeah,
oh, definitely in on it. So,
that was definitely we were
hmm
definitely part of that.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, I mean
Not much to
that's
say there. Not much to say.
yeah, I don't got much on that one. And again, not surprised. Seems like par for the course, kind of, but kind of a dirty play, I guess. Like I mean, you nailed it already. I thought this was the no wars president. What are we
Yeah,
doing?
yeah, right, exactly.
I thought this
Whatever.
was the opposite of what we were doing.
Yeah. Let's do yours.
So what do I have? Oh, well, last thing on Trump, the most important story I think since we've talked last, or we didn't mention this on the last one, did we? The Intel stock. It was right around the same time. I think it might have happened that day that we recorded the last one, but I think that was the most important news of probably Trump's entire presidency, other than maybe the tariffs, at least when it comes to the economic aspect, which is my priority usually. But th- so, for anyone who hasn't seen this one, because the media didn't do much covering of it, they were too busy talking about how Trump accused Obama of treason or something. But what really mattered was that what the Trump administration did is that they took ownership, and I say the word took because they didn't buy ownership. They took ownership of 10% of the stock of the company Intel, which is America's number one and pretty much the only realistic scalable, not even, I mean, it's already not that great, but it is our only shot at producing chips domestically, computer chips, semiconductors domestically at scale. It's the only one, and the government just took 10% of it. Now, I say took specifically because there's a big difference between if the government bought shares off of shareholders who were willing to sell. That's not what they did. They created shares out of nothing. The same way they create money out of nothing. They invented them. They printed them. So now there's more shares. And the government owns them. They gave Intel, I believe it was $11 billion for 10% of their share. And now what happens here, and this is kind of a for anyone who's not into the stocks and into all how this all works, it seems a little confusing. But basically what happens here is the stock price goes up. So the layman would think, okay, well, good for the shareholders, right? No, because the shareholders own a smaller percentage of the company than they did before. So the stock might have gone up a few percent, but if I used to own 10% of the entire shares of the entire company, and now I own 9%, and the stock price went up a couple bucks, I'm actually down
Hundreds of
1% of
hundreds of
yeah,
thousands, millions of dollars.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and not even dollars, not even I mean, dollars probably yes in that case, but even it a lot. So anyone who owns 10% of this company is not thinking in dollars. People like us think in dollars because we're betting a couple $100 here, and oh, I'm going to invest in this company and hope it goes up, and I can make a couple $100 by the end of the year. Anyone who's investing like in the millions, who actually does this for a living, who knows what they're doing with investing, they're not even thinking in dollars because dollars are a very flawed measurement tool to measure wealth because the value of the dollar is always changing and it's always falling. So people aren't thinking in dollars. They don't want dollars. What they want is assets. And so what really happened was they stole some of their assets without their permission, and then they gave them some dollars in return of capital gains, but not really because it's the same. I mean, it's just that could have happened without the government coming in. It's theft. The worst part about it is that the Trump administration made very clear that they do plan on continuing to do this more and more as needed, which means that the stock, which means don't buy Intel, because if you buy stock in Intel, it's worthless. The government can take it. And if they can do it to Intel, they could probably do it to any other stock too. And so it's just, there you go. That it's over. The stock
Yeah,
market's over.
yeah. This one's horrifying for any free market capitalist out there. Take
This was the
no,
one that turned me against Trump. Every
yeah.
single episode up until now, I've been pro Trump. I've been defending Trump. I've been saying, oh, yeah, he's a little crazy, but give him the benefit of the doubt. He cares about us. He loves America. But as soon as this happened, I said, fuck Trump. The next episode, I'm going to go and I'm going to rail this guy because it's bullshit. It's socialism, which the
I
whole
was gonna,
reason I voted for Trump was because I hate socialism. So,
I was gonna say, make no mistake. This is communism, straight up. This is
yes,
public government owned private corporations. That is the one of the simplest definition of communism, right?
it is. Yeah, it's exactly
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
yes.
that's what it is.
It's your what you create and produce is owned by everyone, right? That's kind of the grand scheme of communism. This is
And by everyone, we mean the government,
and by
you
everyone we
know?
mean the government, who is then supposed to use those dollars to help you, but instead they spend it on bombing brown people, right? Um, so yeah,
Exactly.
this is theft of the highest order. This is government owned private companies. This is communism. This is what anyone who voted for Trump based on his acumen in the business world, on his free market adherence, this is why you should be like up in arms about. This is where you should be taking up the banner and saying like, this is not what I voted for. But as you said earlier, this didn't even really make headlines aside from in like the investing sector.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And honestly, I'm on record. I remember we were having this conversation back during the election, and I was up in arms over the idea. We had this debate a little bit that Kamala Harris wanted to tax unrealized capital gains, and I said that's ridiculous. How are you going to tax unrealized capital gains? And
This is
that's
worse.
theft. You're
This is
taking.
worse.
This is much worse because you're
This
not
is
taxing
worse.
it. You're taking it. You're taking the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous, and you can't get it back either. I mean, you can buy other shares, obviously, from other people who are selling shares, but there's a finite amount of shares. I mean, by
Or
design, there's a finite amount of shares.
there
There
was.
was, yeah, there's no longer, and so it's like, but no, there's still. I'll put it this way: there's not a finite amount of shares, but you can only own 100% of the company. You can't own more than that. So the more percentage of the
So you
company
could
the government takes, they're taking from you. They're taking parts of the company from you.
so and now let's not confuse people. You can create more shares in a company, right? It's called like a stock like having. Is that maybe
Yeah,
what
they
it's
do this.
called?
Well,
The,
you could do they do the stock splits, but
the stock
that's
split.
also
That's what
much
it is.
different.
It don't. Yeah,
Yeah, sorry,
you
go
could.
ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say a stock split. Essentially, it's kind of just like a move. Say like Berkshire Hathaway is one who has
It's a
never done
publicity stunt.
who has never done a stock split. He says there's no point in doing a stock split, right? So like they're
A stock split is a
yes,
sales tactic. It's a
yes.
publicity stunt. It says, "Hey, look, remember my stock used to be $500? Now you can buy it for 50." But if that but you only get 10% of
There's
the
10 times as many shares out there, right?
exactly.
So stock split is a real thing. Companies have been doing it for a long time. It's valid. It doesn't really do anything. Really, I think the main reason that happens is if your company has a $5,000 stock, you want people to be able to buy a whole share of your stock, right? So like, all right, we're gonna cut it in fifth. There'll be 5 times as many stocks. It's now worth $1,000. Someone can actually buy a full share of my company now, but there's 5 times as many.
I mean, yeah, that's exactly right. It's the same reason that like a store will make something rather than making it $5, they'll make it $4.99 because it registers in your brain a little differently. It seems like a good deal, and you consider buying it more. And I know this firsthand, even though I'm aware of this, I do it too. Where I'm looking at stocks, what do I want to buy, and I say, this one is $600. Well, I'd only be able to buy two, so I don't want to. I don't want to buy two shares. I want to find one where I can buy like 100 shares. So, I mean, if they were to split that and make it $6, well, now I can buy 200 shares, and it would be the same as me buying 2 shares. I own the same percentage of the company, but it's just better optics. It looks better. So it's just sales, it's marketing. But what they're doing, what the government here did is a little bit different because they didn't split stocks. They made stocks. So it's similar to what it
How
was
are
actually
how the dollar is made
it
out
is,
of
yeah, I mean, it's the exact
magical
yes.
made out of magical fucking fairy dust.
Yeah, exactly right. And the entire point, I mean, the entire reason I got into investing in stocks in the first place was because I hated that aspect of the dollar and I liked it that stocks couldn't do that. But apparently now they can. But they used to be able to do that actually until it became illegal. It was actually Cornelius Vanderbilt, the railroad man, who he was trying to like buy a bunch of stocks in competitor, a railroad competitor, and that company, I can't remember the name, but there were a couple guys who knew that he was doing this, and they sabotaged him by just printing a shit ton of stocks in their own company and just totally and they called it watering down the stock. It's like, oh, he thought he was buying 1/1000th of the company, but he was buying 1/1 millionth of the company, and that's
That's what
the
they
way. That's what they're doing now. You thought you were buying 1/1000th of the company, or you did buy 1/1000th of the company, but suddenly your 1/1000th, it used to be worth $50, and now it's worth $60, but it's no longer 1/1000th. It's now 1/2000th or whatever.
right.
And at the end of the day, you have less value. So the fake money is fake. It looks like you made money, but you didn't. You lost value. And just the very fact that the government can continue, they've said we're going to do this again if we need to. That right there, anyone who's smart, anyone who's got big money, all the whales who are actually investing, they're not going to invest in this because they know that they're just putting their money up to be stolen by the government. So they're not going to do it. This is going to tank the stock. This isn't going to help. This is not going to help America. This is going to tank America.
Yeah, this is exactly what Zuck did in the social network. Anyone who's seen that movie, it's what happened in real life too. That's exactly what Zuckerberg did to his co-founder Eduardo Saverin, right? I don't remember exactly how much he owned. He owned like 20-ish% maybe. I'm kind of just making that number up or whatever. But then they did exactly what they did in this situation. They printed a fucking million more stocks, diluted his share down an insane amount, didn't give him more of the stocks uh, to offset like the increased number. So when he had like say he used to have like 1,000 of 20,000 shares, now he has 1,000 of 2 million shares, and he has none of the company now. You looking up just how hard this guy got fucked?
Well, no, yeah, I was curious on that too. I was
Yeah,
looking up whether or not this is illegal for a
it
company
is.
to do, and I believe it is. So the overlords say that dilution is legal when issuing new shares to raise capital, mergers and acquisitions, stock splits. So yeah, so it is illegal. It's legal to do it publicly and let everyone know this is what you're doing, but it's illegal to do kind of the idea of like, oh, we're just going to print more and now there's more. And to me, what the Trump administration did seems more like the illegal one than it does the legal one. But anyway, I've given my take on that, and I mean honestly, I would. I'm glad we're recording this because we'll see a couple of years from now how much of a normal. This my biggest fear is not that somebody lost a small percentage Intel's uh, of their Intel shares. My biggest fear is that this now becomes, like you said, manufacturing consent, and this becomes the norm where now the stock market is nothing, business is nothing, there is nothing, there's no economy, there's no such thing as free markets, there's no such thing as independent businesses because the government can just make stocks in your company um, against the will of your shareholders too. Maybe the board approved of it, but the board is not the only shareholders. There's anyone could be a shareholder, and so it's bullshit. It's. I mean, we might have just witnessed the end of capitalism if this trend continues.
I mean, I was thinking about bringing up that exact phrase, the end of capitalism. That might have happened a few times over already. I mean, like we're pretty far removed from free markets for the most part.
Yeah,
Like
depending on the
like you
sector.
said,
Like healthcare is way gone.
the
Healthcare
bailouts
is
of the
no.
banks in 2008,
Yeah,
that was
finance is gone. Finance is gone. Healthcare is
grocery
gone.
stores.
I would s gross
That's not really a free
I
market.
I would say I guess what how come I was under the impression thinking that they were one of the ones left, but, I mean, I guess what do you how so?
I mean, that one's more of like a oligopoly now, I guess. There's a few mega competitors, and no one can you can't compete with Kroger is kind of what I was going for along the lines of. Like
Yeah, I
you
guess it's a natural oligopoly rather than
yeah.
a government enforced one, I
But
guess.
now this is a great segue into one I think this is like the last one I had in my notebook. Um this is just based on a TikTok I saw, but if you are an young entrepreneur right now, right? And you want to like start a company, you want to innovate something, you're not really like starting up your company with the idea of beating out competition, of creating a more competitive uh product, of innovating something new. What you're doing is you're creating something to get bought out eventually. You can't have a startup without search engine optimization, without using all of the technological systems that are already in place. You have to market on Google, Meta, Apple. You have to sell through Amazon. If you don't, you literally have no chance of competing. So eventually you either get bought out or you get shut out by the oligarchs now.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this one up. This one, I really like this one a lot because it's an interesting topic. The This is definitely true in the digital space, right? If
Yes.
we're talking about like app developers, you can't. You can be an app developer, but you have to use either the Apple iOS or the Android OS, and they continue to squeeze you for more and more profits every year. So there's no way you can run a sustainable business being an app developer if you're selling your app on the App Store when next year Apple can say, "Oh, we were taking 30% of your profits. Now we're going to take 70%." What are you
What
going
are you
to do?
gonna do? What are you gonna do?
There's nowhere to go. And crypto, the blockchain is attempting to solve that problem. I don't think it'll be for another decade or so, but that will be solved probably by Ethereum. But yeah, no, that is 100% right. And that is, I mean, that's it's a good thing and a bad thing in a way where it's like, well, no, it's mostly a bad thing
Yeah.
because there's really no escape once that fence is up, where it's like, okay, now we've got these seven companies, these robber barons who have so many resources, and it's not it's actually I take that back. It's not the resources. It's that they own the platform. They own
Yes.
they own the gate. You gotta get into my it's like they own the amusement park.
They own the field that the game is being played on.
Yeah, they own the amusement park, and you're trying to build a ride. And it's like, okay, well, you can build a ride, but you're in my amusement park, so really, that's my ride. And that's kind of how it always goes with I mean, obviously there's independent app developers and stuff like that, but they have no negotiating power at all because there's only one platform, well, two platforms that they can develop on. And if they don't develop on those two, then they're out. And those
Hmm.
platforms can just take all of their profits, and that's all that Apple does now. That's why, like, I mean, Meta is crushing Apple on the virtual reality headsets. I mean, Apple was when Steve Jobs' version of Apple was this innovative, uh, new products all the time, and then obviously they kept that running for a while. They got the Apple Watch. They're making the headsets. They're trying to do their thing, but Apple, Apple's most profitable sector is their app store because they take so many profits from the app developers simply because they own the platform. And yes, that can make them big money now, but it's not sustainable. And eventually, I mean, eventually it's like that. There's no reason to even develop there if there's any alternative. Problem is there's no alternative. So yes, we're in a bit of a phase where innovation is being like naturally suppressed,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah. And that's about how you spell the death of your economy for the most part. It's suppression of innovation. Was the loss of Steve Jobs, was that like a huge blow to America?
In my opinion, yes. In
Yeah.
my opinion, yes. Well, I mean, but Steve Jobs really wasn't the mind behind a lot of the technology. He was more of the face. he
Right.
was, like, more of a salesman. He was the creative kind of
Yeah,
artsy guy.
there's Waz behind the scenes.
Woz was the big engineer guy, but I think what it was the leadership role because I
Yes.
and there's something called the founder's law, which is like a good it's not like an actual law, but it's a rule of thumb for like angel investors and anyone who's like trying to invest in individual stocks. And if
Explain what
you're
that is.
so if you're trying to invest in like individual stocks rather than like an index fund or an ETF, there is formula to it. And so there's factors to look at that could give you like like weights, like okay, that's worth 1 point and oh wait, but that's negative 1 point. So for example, like if you're looking at an individual stock and there's 10 other companies doing the exact same thing, well, that's kind of negative because then, like however big the market is, you you you're competing. You're only going to get a tenth of it, hopefully. One of the positive things that a lot of the very successful investors look at is something called founder's law, and it's is the founder of the company still running the company?
Okay,
And if
that's what it
so,
is.
if so, they give big weight to that. And so somebody like Steve Jobs, the founder's law aspect of it is big because you bring in a CEO who's not. You start a company and it grows into Apple. That's like your baby. That's like, like you're gonna die for that company. Then you just hire a bureaucrat to run it, and
Right.
it's not gonna be the same. It's not gonna have the same like energy. And I think that's kind of where Apple is right now, where they don't have the same energy and they're looking at the bottom line when obviously that's capitalism, that's how it goes. But all of the great successes, great innovations usually come from looking at something other than the bottom line. So.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping the founder principle that you mentioned was going to be along the lines of I brought this up probably months ago at this point of the founder's principle of countries, which is for a little refresher for anyone who doesn't remember that episode for all four follow listeners we got out there. The founder's principle of a country is your country actually is pretty like correlated to whatever principles like your founder had, right? So you look at America, George Washington, one of the best diplomats, politicians of all time, actually, right? This guy could have crowned himself king. This guy could have become a dictator, a ruler, whatever. What does he do after he wins the Revolutionary War? He gives his sword to Congress, meaning like I won this war, I got us a country, I'm giving the power back to you, right? So that was huge. What does he do after that? They unanimously elect him president. He steps down after 2 terms. He doesn't want to be a lifetime ruler, right? Why from here on out, except for FDR, did guys serve 2 terms? It's because George Washington did. It's because our founder did it, right? Then it got cemented into law after FDR. You look at South American countries. Why didn't South American countries take off and prosper in the same way the United States did? Well, who was their founder? Simón Bolivar, El Libertador, as he's referred to as the liberator. He liberates like half of South America, but Simón Bolivar, kind of a fucker. This guy was an amazing general, but was not the amazing politician, the amazing like kind of ethos we have around George Washington of his, never told a lie, all those kind of like propaganda that we believe now. But he actually was a really good uh, democratic leader. Bolivar was not. Bolivar kind of established himself as a de facto dictator ruler afterwards. So what happens afterwards? There's just power struggles. Guys try to cement themselves at the top. Goes back to that founder's principle of your country kind of follows the rules of whoever establishes it. So that's kind of what I was hoping you would say there, but still
I
still a
guess
good
there's a
point.
little bit that is I really like that, and that I think there's a little bit to it, where you could kind of same kind of idea. The way I worded it was like, oh, the founder's not running the company anymore, but it's still, I guess, if the founder were to, I think the case with Steve Jobs is that Steve Jobs, uh, where it wasn't like he had a successor that he had personally trained. It wasn't like Wozniak took over.
Right.
It was a different kind of it was a corporate guy. It was a public company. They got to pick the guy that gives the most money to the shareholders, as it always goes. But like a company like Meta, I mean, Zuckerberg is still running it, and that's massive for Meta's stock value. And if he were to step down, um, yeah, or a great example would be like someone, well, no, I take that back. I think Zuckerberg is the great example, but
Yeah, I
either
agree.
way, it's kind of same principle though. Even if it's not the same person, it at least has the same mentality and the same vision. Um, I think it applies to countries too. Realistically, our country's not just companies that encompass all the other companies in the country. I feel like they kind of are. At the end of
Yeah,
the day, the company's job is also just to make money.
yeah, basically. You got one more, then we'll maybe call it.
I did want to bring up and we talked about it briefly on the last episode, and this is kind of my own theory here, so there's nothing, don't take anything too serious. But we talked about last time how the marriage rate and the home ownership rate of people under 30 was in heavy decline for a while, and we were at like all-time lows right now, right? We pulled up the chart and everything. And obviously correlated with marriage rate is birth rate, and birth rate is also taking a real dive right now. And we are currently at 1.7 per 1.7 children per couple on average for, I believe it's people between 22 and 35 or something like that. And so what that I mean, it takes two people to make a kid, and those two people are only making 1.7 on average, meaning we're not replacing the population. And that seems like not a big deal because it's 1.7 over 2. It's not that much of a difference. But when you look at it as an exponential curve, it does become a big deal because unless we expect the birth rate to go back up, the, the number of kids each couple will need to meet the replacement levels of, say, the boomers or, say, the Gen X is going to keep multiplying. So if our generation, say, doesn't meet the 2 kids per couple on average threshold, the following generation is going to have more than 2 kids to get back up. And at the rate we're at, I saw something showing that 2 generations from now, couples are going to need to have 6 kids in order to bring the population back up to the level that it's currently at. And that is not going to happen
Hmm.
unless there's drastic societal and cultural change. It's not going to happen. And so it is actually a problem. And obviously, they say money doesn't lie. And good example of that is when the media said that Trump was going to lose and Poly Market said that he was going to win and then he won. Usually the betting markets always win because, as we talked about with Big Time Tommy on one episode, there's so much information going into these. These are the big money people who know what they're doing, and it's investment in business is a speculative industry, and so even though we might not yet be seeing a population decline in the present, we can probably be pretty sure that we're going to see one in the near future. And evidence of this, look at McDonald's. McDonald's, one of the most successful companies, global company, most successful company in the history of the world. American, it's like the
American
American
through and through.
flag,
Yep.
basically. Yeah. And let's take a look at McDonald's now. So McDonald's, as we remember as little kids, and anyone over the age of probably what 16 remembers, is that it used to have the big bright red roof and the yellow paint all over, and it was some crazy shapes, and it had some crazy swivelly chairs, and it had big clowns and characters in there, and it was all
Monsters
like kind of, yeah, it was like a big,
blobous
it was
purple origin.
they had the playpens,
Yeah.
I would go in the playpens, I would get in fights with kids in the playpens, and now they're getting rid of the playpens. And if you've been in a McDonald's recently, at least around here, they all look like offices. They look like offices. And there's no playpen, there's no clowns, there's no colors. It just looks like an office. And now like I said, it's just a theory, but the common idea behind this is that, well, it's for property value because I
Yeah.
can resell my property. Like if I have this goofy looking property, it's going to sell for less value than if I have like kind of a cookie cutter property that could be used for an office or a restaurant or whatever. I think that's probably part of it. But what it doesn't explain is the commercials. From 1992 till the early 2000s, all of the McDonald's commercials, featured Ronald McDonald, and he was playing around with some kids, and they were eating some Happy Meals, and they were goofing off, and they had the big purple thing, and they were all doing all this shit. They had the burglar,
The
what is it?
burglar.
Burglar. Yeah, they had the
the,
burglar
the
stealing the burgers,
Hamburglar.
and everyone's jumping around, and it was all like a big happy-go-lucky thing. They're blowing bubbles, doing hula hoops, and it was targeted towards kids. And if you look at a 2025 ad, and I'll put it in, it is targeted towards single, busy working adults. It is, hey, stop in here. We have coffee and a quick breakfast that we can get you for cheap on your
Check
way to the
we
office.
got we got Wi-Fi, check your emails,
We got
like
Wi-Fi. Yeah, you can actually work while you're here. Work while
yeah.
you're here. Don't take any time off. Keep working. That's what they're marketing now. And now that might be a one-off, but if we look around, all of these other companies are doing it too. I just saw on WGN a couple weeks ago that Chuck E. Cheese is opening up an adults only arcade. They serve alcohol there,
That
and the
sounds
arcade games
sweet.
are tailored towards adults. It does sound sweet. I'm
That
definitely going to go to it.
sounds
It's going to be awesome. But why are these companies doing this? This is not it's not because they're like, "Oh yeah, this would be sweet." It's because you got a bunch of you've got a bunch of
we have an
what's the guy's
aging
fucking name? Now I'm
population.
blanking on his name. Tim Cook. You got a bunch of these Apple type CEOs who are coming in here. They only care about the bottom line. And what are they looking at? They're looking at demographics. The demographics show that the target audience is no longer the kids because there's not enough of them. And the ones that there are, parents can't even afford a house. So how are they going to take them to Chuck E. Cheese? They can't. They're focused on single, working, busy adults with no wife, no kids, no no family structure at all. Those are who they're targeting. And that, to me, if we're not there yet, that implies that that's where we're going. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think we need to turn it around. We need to start having kids.
Yeah. I got a couple points there. So the property value one, me and you had kind of gotten into it a little bit over text on this, but I had literally like right before you texted me that I had seen videos about how uh or the property value is a big part of it, right? If you ever watched the movie The Founder, it's about McDonald's, right? Ray Kroc thought he was selling burgers. All right, realistically, Ray Kroc isn't selling burgers. Ray Kroc is buying a piece of land, selling burgers on that piece of land to offset his mortgage payment on that land, or I don't know if it's called a mortgage, whatever, commercial uh, loan, whatever it's called. He's selling burgers to offset that payment he has to make so that 5, 10 years down the line, his property value is increased. You can sell that property value. That's where the actual money comes from in franchises like that, right? That's still true. That's a part of it, right? And that's why, like you said, they used to have the big red things, crazy designs. You look at Pizza Huts, right? Pizza Hut used to have the Pizza Hut roofs on all of their stores. You look at it and you go, that's a Pizza Hut, right? So if 10 years from now you want to sell your property and you're trying to put a Office Depot in there, people are going to look at that and be like, oh, what the fuck? This used to be a Pizza Hut, right? So it declines the property value. That's a part of it. Another part of it is definitely the fact that we are an aging population. That is just the fact of things, right? They used to market towards kids because if you get kids in at 7, 8 years old, you have a customer for life. That used to be their marketing strategy, right? Get them in early, get them addicted to the Happy Meals, whatever, so that 30 years from now they still come back, they still buy burgers from you. Another aspect that I don't think you've brought up yet is just the fact that inflation has been so crazy in the past 2 decades that they've kind of priced out who used to be their main consumer, who used to go to McDonald's.
That's a
Not
good
the
point. Good
not
point.
the rich guys, right? It used to be guys who like me who are going there because I can get 4 cheeseburgers for $4, right? And now 4 cheeseburgers runs you $20. So it's almost like, and if McDonald's could be selling them for $1, they would still be selling them for $1. It's not their greed that has jacked up the prices. It's the fact that our dollar isn't worth anything that has jacked up their prices, right? Everything's more expensive for them. I think they make a couple pennies on a cheeseburger, right? They make basically nothing on a cheeseburger. They have to sell it at what they're selling it at. They would sell it for less if they realistically, like physically could. Now a part of why their advertising has changed in my mind at least is, well, all right, teenagers don't really have the money to go and buy McDonald's after school every day. Who does have the money? Like you said, it's single people who don't have a wife, don't have a kids, looking for some quick, convenient food, maybe a spot to check their emails, someone who can afford to spend 10, $15 on some absolute garbage.
I do agree with you on both of those. Part of the reason too, I'm guessing they would target kids is because it's like cheap food, and it's like, all right, it's cheap, quick food. It's for a working mom's got to feed a couple kids. It's like, all right, here, quick, boom, and they like it, and everyone loves it. Everyone's happy. That's no longer what it is. It's $9 for a burger that's not even going to fill you up. So it's not the same product. The product's changed, but the question is there a product that has replaced and not only just McDonald's, but Taco Bell and all these old kind of fast food, KFC. Where are these products that are there? It seems like there is none, unless I'm just
Yeah.
missing them. But fine, McDonald's has ran its course, and now it's going to make a property that's going to look more like an office because they eventually want to sell that property. Well, where's the property with the big red roof that was appealing to the kids? Or another factor is, are the kids? Is it not worth it to appeal to the kids? Because the kids aren't watching anymore because they're looking at iPads, and they're like it's not registering them the same way as it did to kids in the 90s, early
There's so much
2000s.
other stuff to grab their attention
Right.
rather than the ad
The
that pops up
dopamine the dopamine doesn't hit, it's drowned out by all the other bullshit.
by everything else, right? Yeah. It's again, as we always say, it's probably a culmination of all of these factors, right? It's
Yeah,
the
definitely.
answer is almost never just one thing. The answer isn't solely private equity fucked up the fast food market, and that's why we can't have anything cheap anymore. That's not really the answer. It's several factors all culminating into one trend, essentially.
Yeah, and building up over time, and then you've got the house of cards, which, I mean, I'm hearing pretty smart people saying that we're getting towards the end, so we'll see.
I agree that again, I've been seeing it for years, and what has happened, but nothing but fucking vertical stonks only go up sort of deal. But
I
again,
mean, but to be fair, I mean, or sorry,
that's
go ahead.
I'm just gonna finish out that thought. That's also the problem is that we're overdue for a correction. COVID was supposed to be a correction. 3 months later, all the stock prices are right back up. Everything's right back on track. Things aren't allowed to fail anymore. So, like I said an hour ago, we might be in an everything bubble wherein everything is overinflated. Everything is not the way it appears to be, and that's economic collapse.
When everyone looks at money as a metric, then it always looks like it's going up. But it's not. I mean, if we look at over the last couple of years, it's not even the production went up that much, but the stocks went up crazy. But that's just because there was way more money now, and so it's the same thing as the Intel day. It's just worth more. But I mean, and then the other thing I want to say was, to be fair though, everyone's been saying we're reaching the collapse, and like you said, I've been hearing this for years. I've been hearing this for years, right? But really, I mean, when we zoom out on the time scale of things, it's like, okay, if I would have said in 1938 that we're gonna have a war soon, and then in 1940, it's like, oh yeah, you've been saying that for years, but it's only been 2 years, and so it's like, if someone would have predicted there was gonna be a war soon in 1937, then they would have been right because there was a
Mm-hmm.
war soon. There was a war 5 years later, and so we've been hearing there's gonna be a collapse soon for the last 5 years or so. And it's like, oh yeah, we've been hearing that for that whole time. But if we zoom out, it seems like it's might be coming, and it might not be tomorrow, it might be next year or 5 years from now. But either way, I mean, within the next, I guess I don't know the time frame, but
Because
we're set up, we're ready for it, I
an
guess.
a seemingly undeniable fact is the American empire is on its downturn, right?
Seems like
That
it
it
to me. I
that
would say
is
so.
nearly undeniable at this point. It doesn't really seem feasible that we're on the upslope, right? You talk about like the rise and fall of empire of nations like that. It always goes like that, right? And it really appears as if we're right about there going down as opposed to over here and still going up, right? So it it comes down to, will our policymakers, kind of ease off and accept the fact that maybe we're not the undisputed sole global superpower anymore, or will they cling on to the last vestiges of glory, try to ride out the wave for as long as they possibly can, and let it come all crashing down, or are steps taken to kind of ease us off the absolute top and get us into like a nice like even keel.
Like England basically it kind of did.
Right.
Do you think that we are 100, do you think that we are trending down, but there is a chance of
Yes.
recovery, or do you think that it's like we're pretty much destined, so we might as well start taking those steps to kind of like you said, kind of get ourselves like a stable decline rather than a collapse?
I
Because I've
think
heard
we
both sides pretty convincing on that.
I think we have to accept that it's not the 1960s anymore. That we are not the global manufacturing superpower, that we're not the intelligence superpower, that we're not even the technological superpower. We have some of the best tech companies in the world. We're not the sole one in the world, right? We have to
Should we
accept the
try to be, or should we accept that should we say
I
our
think
time is done, someone else take the throne?
I think the smartest thing would be our time is done, accept other players into the field so we can still be involved at the top rather than like cling onto it as hard as we possibly can. And then once our time is actually done, we're thrown aside. I think that's the smarter route is to kind of accept that we're not the sole
Try to
top.
get
Tr-
in there in a
yeah,
decent position
yeah,
so we're not thrown to
yeah,
the
exactly.
bottom.
Yeah, try to get in there so we can like stay at the top, not the sole power at the top, but still, in the
Yeah,
top
yeah,
top
we're in the group.
part. Yeah, we're in like the first quartile still, but like maybe not like the absolute tippy top, but we're still among the big boys rather than everyone throw us aside because we're fuckers. What do
Yeah,
you
I
think?
mean
What do you
then
think? What would
well
you
no,
what do you think? Yeah.
I've been thinking about this a lot. I don't really have a good like solution. I do like what you're saying though about how if it really is at the point of no return, which I think there's a fair argument could be said that we are, then we are probably smart to take our losses, but try to not take the big risk to try to get back to the top when it's not going to happen and then end up screwing ourselves over. I agree. The one thing that I would say that's a problem in our specific scenario is that the replacement will be China, which I think in a business sense we could get along with China, no problem. I think we already do. I think in an economic sense, China could be a good business partner. We can scoot right up underneath them and be, the still have a solid footing. The problem I think now gets back to a problem of like morality and values and virtues and kind of like a humanitarian thought process where if we were to do that, we no longer have the leverage when it comes to human rights. So like we talk about human rights, everyone likes human rights, but human rights is a fake thing. It's not real. And what human rights are is what we as is what the United States government says they are.
Yes.
And if someone's violating human rights overseas, the US government can go over there and say, "Hey, you're violating human rights." And overseas they might say, "We don't that's not a thing. We don't have human rights." And they'll say, "Fuck you,"
Counter
because
argument.
we're on top.
Counter
But
argument.
China,
We're
now
probably the
they define
biggest.
human rights, I
Okay,
guess.
counter argument. We're probably the biggest perpetrators of human rights in other countries. Like,
I think our sense of morality, definition of human rights, kind of virtues and values is much, much better objectively than uh, many, many other countries. I think we're probably on par with Western Europe. Everyone, we can battle back and forth who's better, us or Canada, but we're pretty much the same. But when we go over to a place like China, where they have, everyone talks about how Trump's the new Hitler, but China has concentration camps right now for the Uyghur Muslim community.
the Uyghurs. Yeah.
Yeah, and
YouTube don't
that's
censor us
that's
for that. That's a real word.
And that's the case with Russia. That's the case with a lot of Middle Eastern countries. And I agree with you. We're getting in other people's business where we probably shouldn't be, and we're acting like the world police, which we're obligated to do, but it's kind of a fucking stupid thing to begin with. But if we don't do that, then we just allow China to do it, and now their virtues and their values are they're the ones pushing them on us. And
I
I
don't
think
think
when
I don't think
they
they
have a
have.
surveillance sorry.
I was cutting you off. You can finish off, then I'll go a bit.
Well, I mean, they've got a lot of things that I'm quite honestly a little bit afraid of. They've got like massive surveillance states, like way beyond. I know we talked about this. We kind of have one too, but theirs is actually like government enforced. We talked about, oh, Trump's watering down Intel. The government owns all their shit. They are 20 steps ahead of
All right,
us when it comes to that.
all right. Let me cut in here right now. Here's an interesting one for you. I want to throw it back on you. Transparency. You've said you're a fan of Trump because he'll say "fuck you" to your face, as opposed to the Democrats who will smile in your face and go behind your back. Is it not better that China is open about their surveillance state, about their social credit system, rather than the fact that the United States already has it and we hide it from people?
Well, so I don't think that we have the surveillance state. Yes, we do have it, but it's decentralized. So the government doesn't own the surveillance. They do have access to it. So it's kind of the same thing. I'll give you that one. China controls their own internet. They can't see any. They have the Great Firewall of China.
Yeah,
So they're not allowed to see anything outside of China, and they're not allowed to get anything outside of China. The CCP controls the social media. They have absolute control over all information you see. You can get arrested in China if you post a photo or a drawing or a cartoon
of
of
Winnie the
Winnie the
Pooh.
Pooh. It's ridiculous, but it's also a big problem. I wouldn't define that as transparency at all. That's lack of transparency. The fact that they have a surveillance state is only known. It's not like the government's saying, "Hey, everyone get invested in." It's not like the people voted on on surveillance state. They know that they have a surveillance state because all of their friends and family members have been arrested and persecuted using the surveillance state. So it's obvious. But it's not like they got a vote. It's not like the government cares what the people think. They don't have a democracy in
Okay,
the same way
okay.
we
Neither
do.
does do we. We don't really have much of a democracy anymore. I think
No,
I'm
that's
sure.
fair to say. I would agree. We ours is collapsing. Theirs doesn't exist, but they have much more dangerous systems that are actually I think taking they're actually in the advantage a little bit due to the new digital landscape where like we talked about earlier, what's the number one problem in America right now? I think it's the division. What's the cause of the division? Social media. There's no division in China because you're not allowed to say anything bad about the government on social media. And if you do, you just get banned. Meanwhile, everyone else who's still on there just gets pumped full of pro CCP propaganda, and so there is no division. They're all on the same page. That's why they're kicking our asses right now. Is because they're not dealing with the problems we have as a democracy. So I think their system is more efficient in today's landscape than democracy
Well,
is, which I think is bad.
it's always that's not even in today's. That's just kind of how it works. Democracy is the least efficient form of government by design.
I
Dictatorships
mean, I
or
think
monarchies are the most efficient forms of government by design. That's just how it works.
I don't know. I think okay.
Well,
I would kind of disagree.
that's not that you can't really disagree with that point. That's just how it works.
I mean, I would
That's how it's
disagree
set
with.
up.
No, I don't think. I mean, well, it depends what you mean. Okay, I guess looking at it two different ways. Efficiency when it comes to regulations and policies, getting things done, getting things passed.
Yeah.
I agree with you. But efficiency as far as like productive economies, I would say no. I mean, look at the Soviet Union was a communist dictatorship, and we crushed them. I think that democracy was good then because the free market was better. But now we're getting to a point where the free market might not be so much better because it's now digital, and having that central
Well,
control
uh,
might
that
be an
that's
advantage.
difference between economics and politics, though. Free
Yeah, yeah,
market,
two different realms, two different realms.
yes. Free
I was
market,
thinking economics.
yes. Free market capitalism versus communism is an economic policy. Authoritarian dictatorships versus democracies are a political setup, and it's just undeniable that it is more efficient to run it through one person than it is through 300 million.
Yes,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
part I agree
yeah,
with. But the free market in the so free
yes,
market and
yeah,
democracy
yep,
are hand in hand. But I'm talking more on the economic sense. That's why I think one of the big reasons that China is crushing us is simply because the shifting landscape has given their centrally controlled economy advantages that never existed before, such as we're living in an information and attention economy, and they now have a monopoly over information and attention, and
yeah.
so it makes sense why they're more seemingly doing better than we are.
There's a interesting quote I've heard that I think I'll we can end off on pretty well. In China, you can change. the policy, but you cannot change the party. In America, you can change the party, but you cannot change the policy, right? Meaning
That's pretty
a
good.
couple of decades ago, China was very, very different economically than they are right now. They are much closer to like free market capitalism than they were decades ago. The party's still the same. They're still the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, right? But they've realized actually free markets are pretty good. We want international trade. We want these things. In America, you change the face of the party every couple of years, but we do the same shit year over year, election after election.
That is a great quote. I've never heard that
Yeah.
one before, but I that's seems very accurate actually, because that is
Right.
true. I mean, the CCP was started under Mao,
Yes.
and it is yeah, like you said, it's entirely the opposite of what it was then, but
It's
it's still
not
the
even close
CCP.
to Maoism anymore, but it's still the same
Yeah,
CCP. Right.
yeah. No,
So,
that's actually pretty good.
yeah.
All right, we ran a long one today, but I think it was a good one.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
All right.